Hey guys, welcome to the I Hope They Hear This podcast, and we have another special guest, Miss Helen Bai. Well, actually, is it Helen Shim now?
Soon to be Helen Shim.
Yeah, soon to be Helen Shim. Yeah, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being on.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. It was kind of last minute when we decided to do this, but I'm glad we decided to. So Helen and I go to the same church, which is weird
Yes,
because she doesn't live in Georgia anymore.
that's correct.
How long has it been since you moved to New Jersey?
Um, I moved to New Jersey end of March, mid-March, so it's
So
been,
just as COVID was going crazy.
yep,
Yeah.
yes.
But because church has gone virtual for pretty much all churches, it doesn't even feel like you've really left because we're doing all the church stuff that we usually do. So yeah, the way that we decided to do this was we usually have a 7 a.m. prayer meeting every other Saturday. And this past Saturday, it was just me and Helen because everyone else was sleeping. So yeah, we were like, oh hey, your life is very interesting. Let's talk about your life on the podcast. So
Yep.
let's just dive in. Let's go from the beginning and along the way, I'll just ask questions. So beginning from where you were born, where
hmm
were you born?
So I was born in Seoul, South Korea, and yeah, I was raised from Korea and finished my fourth grade there and moved to Georgia, United States in 2002.
Well, so you were actually in Korea a lot longer than I thought you were.
Oh,
Fourth
really?
grade, yeah. Huh.
Yeah. So almost finished elementary school and
Hmm.
then came to Georgia.
What was the reason?
Um, I mean, it's just I think my parents decided to move first for our education, me and my brother's education, and also to start up a business. So my aunt, she lived in U.S. for over 20 years, so she
Hmm.
moved um, to Georgia, I think, in 1980s. So yeah, she like invited us to come, move to US so that, it's better for us as education, and then also my parents can start a small business with her. So
Hmm. Yeah, you have an older brother as well, right?
yeah, his name is Peter. He's 4 years older than me. And so yeah, it's just me and my brother, two of us.
So he was like in the middle of high school when he moved. Is that right?
Yeah, so actually he was I
Oh
think he
yeah.
started freshman.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so ninth grade he moved when we moved.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a big transition for him, especially because it's really hard to move to a different country, you know, at that your teenage years, like
Yeah.
middle of your teenage years. So
I mean, but how was the transition for you?
um, I would say, I mean, I just came, like I didn't have any say in it. I really don't remember honestly. I think it was just one day, like my parents were like, "We're moving to America," and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I was sad because I had friends in Korea. Like my best friend from, childhood best friend was, still in Korea. And yeah, so I was pretty sad, but then I think I got really used as soon as we moved, I got really used to, making new friends, like learning English because it was a little bit easier for me because I was younger than my brother. So the whole transition was actually not too bad. Or it might be that I just don't remember.
Interesting. Because you guys came straight from Korea to Georgia, right?
hmm
Yeah, when I came from Korea, I actually went to LA, where
Oh,
there's
okay.
already kind of a big Korean population.
Yeah.
So as soon as I got here, I actually had Korean friends at school that were helping me from the get.
Okay.
Like there were several Korean people.
hmm
So that's what made the transition easier for me because I had people translating for me. But for you, I
hmm
can't imagine there being a lot of Korean people around you when you moved here. Were there?
No, yeah. So, but interestingly, so I started fifth grade, when we moved.
Mm,
And back in the day, I don't know if they still do it in elementary school, but you would have your own homeroom teacher, and then a classroom will be connected. So there's two teachers that will kind of oversee each other's class for
mm,
your homeroom period. So my I had Miss Mitchell. I still remember her name because it was like, well, pretty cool English name. Anyways, yeah, Miss Mitchell, and then there's Miss Crockett, and she was actually Korean, married to I don't know exactly what nationality he is, but anyways, but like she was born and raised in America, so didn't really speak Korean that well.
mm.
But she really helped me to kind of get things together, if I don't really understand, because she understood some Korean. So
Oh wow.
yeah, that was kind of interesting. And then yeah, but I didn't have that much Korean friends in elementary school.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think. I started like making friends, Korean friends in middle school.
Do you have any memories of like feeling ashamed of being Korean or anything like that, or feeling awkward because like you ate different things from your friends or anything like that?
Not because I'm Korean, but because I didn't speak English well.
Mm,
So, like even during like I attended regular classes, with ESL classes, but even during regular classes, I kind of like sat in a corner by myself. And then Miss Mitchell, she like gave me different things to work on because I really didn't understand the whole classroom, like with the teachings that they were doing.
mm,
So yeah, that kind of made me feel like a little ashamed, the fact that I didn't speak the language,
mm.
fluently. Yeah.
Okay,
So there was definitely like a barrier, um, I would say.
that's interesting. Huh. Wow. So no, because I I don't know that many people who was born in Korea and moved here at an early age like you.
Yeah.
And good, yeah, because most of the people around us, they were either just born here or they recently came from Korea or something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just interested to know how similar or how different our experiences were. Because
Mm,
for me, not knowing the language was never really like
an
a shame
issue.
thing. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh, I don't know the language. What are you gonna do, right? But the things that I struggled with was like looking different, which is weird because there was
Uh,
plenty of Koreans around me, but because I was only able to hang out with the Korean people around me, I felt like I was lacking something. And I thought it was my appearance, like
mhm.
because I don't look like those people over there, like I can't hang out with them. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, which is really interesting because I was around probably way more Koreans than you were.
Yeah.
So it's weird that I had that issue, but you didn't. Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think like from ESL class, I think my best friend back then, like during elementary school, was like mostly Hispanic friends. Like I
Hmm.
had a lot of Hispanic friends, that didn't speak English well, like, and then I used to like go to their birthday parties, and they will speak Spanish, like, with their family, and I'll be like, I don't understand anything about Spanish, but yeah, like they would like invite me to their house and things like that. So
Oh,
yeah.
oh, that's good. Okay, then let's moving forward. Like you're saying relatively the transition was easy. But how was it? Yeah, like just growing up in America. Like, did you start seeing any stark differences from what it was like in Korea versus America? Because although I came to America when I was in kindergarten, I
Mhm.
immediately noticed so many differences. Like in Korea, I didn't really get to go outside by myself, but in America, I don't know why. Like my mom let me go out to the park right in front of our house all the time, and so there were things like that were different.
Mm,
Did you have any differences like that?
interesting, because it was for me, it was actually the opposite of what you just
Oh,
said. So in Korea, I used to go out. So there was a river right in front of our apartment,
Mm,
and then I would, ride my bike and meet with my best friend, and we would be outside the whole day, riding the bikes and hanging out in the playground, and yeah, just, and then when the sun goes down, then I will come home and eat
mm,
dinner and stuff like that.
mm,
But here, I think I have less freedom of like doing outdoor activities. First, probably because you need a car to go anywhere and everywhere in US. And I just didn't really have friends to like go out and play with when we like first moved. So, I lived with my cousin, and yeah, so we moved around same time, and I like hung out with her most of the time, but I'm losing what you asked.
no, no. Just in general, kind of the differences. Did you notice any differences of growing up in America versus growing up in Korea?
Yeah, definitely. It was very different. Just just the how you play, like, the things that you have access to,
Mm,
and even just, not having friends around. Yeah, in Korea, in our apartment, your friends live like the next door, next like apartment building within the same neighborhood. But because I was living at a house, like my family lived with my aunt and she owned a house,
mm.
so you can't really make neighborhood friends, I guess.
Yeah.
So very different.
And just for context for people who don't know, in Korea, when we say apartment building, it's literally like a tower. Like some go, like my brother in Korea lives on like the 30th floor in his apartment building. So some
Yeah,
get really tall. It's not like the apartment complexes that we have here, where it's like at most like 3 or 4 stories, very spread wide. It's literally a tower that goes straight up. So there's, I don't know, average, let's say there was 30 floors and 3 units per floor, then that means there's potentially 90 families living in a single like building.
right.
So it's a lot easier to have friends like really close by because there's
Yeah.
it's super dense like that. Yeah. Hmm, that's interesting. So then, like, did you like growing up in America, did you ever feel like you wanted to go back to Korea? Not just because like, oh, I miss my friends, but just in terms of the lifestyle.
Um, Actually, that's a good question. Never really thought about that. But that tells me that I've never really wanted to because I've never thought about it.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Because the reason I ask is because when I moved from LA to Georgia, for like the
Uh-huh.
first 2 years, every single day was like, man, I need to get out of here. I wanted to move back to LA so badly.
Mm,
And it was mostly just because of lifestyle. My the definitely lived in a much bigger house in Georgia,
mm-hmm.
but we were like 10-minute drive away from the beach, maybe even 5 minutes, and like things were
Wow.
close enough that we were able to like bike to the grocery store, rent a movie, come home, and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you didn't really feel that way.
I think it may be also because um all the good memories that I have from Korea is not that, yeah, it's like I lived more of my life
Mm,
in US now than in Korea, so that may be also another reason. Um yeah, maybe. And then I also felt like what I had um after moving here, I think like, as I think when you get to middle school and high school, that's when you really make your friends, that, and I think like the beginning of my teenage years, I started in here, so I didn't really felt like the need for wanting to go back to Korea, I think.
mm.
Yeah.
So, so if you, I mean, you're about, do you, are you guys officially married yet, like certificate wise, or
No,
not?
happening in October.
Okay, so you're soon to be married. So
Yes.
if you were to imagine yourself as a mother,
Mm.
would you be okay with putting your child kind of through the similar transition? Live until they're in fourth grade in one place and then move to a totally different place um, for them to like learn how to restart their life.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
I think when it comes to that kind of aspect, I mean, granted, like there are a lot of things that, like, language barriers, and I still feel like there's somewhat of a language barrier that I have. Like Korean is, even though I live most of my life in US now, like Korean is, I'm more comfortable
Hmm.
in speaking in Korean than English. But then I think there is so much value in being able to speak both languages
Hmm.
fluently. And if I have the chance to do that for my kid, I would love to do that. And I think elementary school. So my cousin moved here when she was in third grade. I moved here when I was in fifth grade, right? And then I think at that age, it's really perfect for you to learn both languages
Hmm.
very well.
Hmm.
Yeah, like my brother still has a hard time, with English.
Hmm.
He's fluent, but then he still has a strong Korean accent and things like that. But when you come at a younger age, it's better, I would say.
Yeah. And I want to say kindergarten, which is when I moved here, that's too early because I didn't learn enough of the Korean language to be
Right.
really fluent in Korean.
Hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting because you actually pray in Korean still, right?
Yeah.
And that yeah, I always thought that was interesting. Oh, but that makes sense because it's more comfortable and you feel like you can express yourself better in that language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This year I started to like practice praying in English, but I still feel like there are certain words and things that I have to say in Korean to express,
Yeah.
my prayers. So,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. When I pray in front of my parents, like when we're about to eat dinner and my parents are like, David, you pray. Although they don't speak English, I still just pray in English because
yeah.
I feel like I can't pray in Korean. So I totally feel you. Oh, so that's interesting. So you feel like instilling like fluent languages in your children, that's a big factor for you.
Yeah.
Mm,
So, like, me and Justin, when we have kids, right? We decided that I'm gonna speak only Korean and
mm,
he's gonna speak only English. So at a young age, they'll be able to, they have exposure to both languages.
mm.
And yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's good.
that's what we want to do.
Yeah. I think with Aisley, me and Shirley, we speak both languages to her. Like we'll
Yeah,
speak Korean sometimes, English sometimes. And my mom watches her every morning and she only speaks Korean. So,
yeah.
but it's interesting because it's like you can tell she's picking up from both languages in
Hmm.
certain words and certain things. So I think it's a good
Yeah.
plan. Yeah. So, I mean, what in particular do you think being bilingual is advantageous?
Um, well, family perspective, I think, because just communication with elders
Mm,
and including your parents. Um, like for me, I'm able to connect with Justin's parents very well. And
mm,
one big aspect is because I speak Korean fluently. Even though they know how to speak English very well, they're very fluent. They still speak Korean to me. And I think there is a deeper level of communication that can be done because Korean is their native language as well.
yeah,
So when it comes to connecting with elders, I think that's very good. And also, it's a really good skill, like, on your resume as well. Like, oh, you can speak two languages.
mm,
It makes you, more intelligent, I would say, and also, another skills that you can, express, I guess,
yeah.
in your resume.
So, like being close to one's family. being knowing how to like communicate well with like your elders and things like that. That's a very kind of Korean culture mindset, right? Like
Yeah.
prioritizing family. How much do you think you'll try to preserve Korean culture for your children?
I would say a lot.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I mean, I think there is so much value that, I mean, there are a lot of flaws in Korean cultures, definitely. But there's also good things that you could take away
mm,
from Korean culture. And I think one is definitely family oriented
mm,
and respecting elders. I
mm,
mean, some people might say like, you know, but then that's kind of also the flaw of Korean culture because you end up, you feel like you have to obey listening to elders all the time, and you know.
yeah.
But I think as you get older, there's also wisdom in that. I would say learning things from the elders and taking things that's only necessary.
Mm,
So for my kids, I would love to instill that a lot of Korean cultures in them. Because I think by blood we are also Korean and American. So
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a interesting one because that's something that Shirley and I are navigating right now.
Hmm.
And sometimes we actually have disagreements.
Uh.
So one of the things I actually talk about this on the podcast a lot is kind of like this Hyung Nunat culture of kind of having like it's almost like a hierarchy system, right? Like how based on how others are like older than you or younger than you. But Shirley doesn't really care for that as much as I do. Like I
Hmm.
really like I want AZ to grow up calling like older people Hyung or I guess Oppa or Anni.
Hmm.
But for Shirley, she's like, well, I don't really care if she does or not. So
Mm,
yeah, those
interesting.
yeah, because I think that's part of like the whole respect thing
Right.
within the Korean culture that I think is really important. And Shirley
Yeah.
definitely agrees with that. She just doesn't agree with the platform, which is the whole Hyung Unni thing, right?
Yeah.
So
I see what Shirley's saying. Yeah, I get what Shirley's saying though. I mean, respect comes in many different forms, and it doesn't have to be only on the labels or oppa, like 언니. So yeah, I think like for example, like Justin, like my brother Peter, like he's older than Justin, right?
hmm
And he still calls my brother Peter, but there is also like sense of respect when he talks to him. So
mm,
yeah, so I think it goes both ways. Like always you don't and then you could call somebody like 형 or like 오빠, but then show disrespect. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's true. That's very true.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's a very interesting thing that we have to navigate. Like for example, if your child turned like 25, or let's say your child turned 30 and they were still living with you, like would you be okay with that?
um,
Because our parents definitely would be okay with that. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
the whole like straight old school Koreans, like they don't want to let you leave the house until you get married,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
But for us, like would we be able to do that?
Personally, I don't think I would like that. Once you're like graduate from college, you go out and you live your life, like
Yeah,
yeah, become an adult.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I think like the generation that comes after us, like our kids, it's
yeah,
going to be really interesting to see what kind of culture they grow in. Because for us, the second generation Korean Americans, oh, I guess we're more 1.5, right? But
yeah. I
like,
think we're really 1.5
yeah,
in
but
between.
we have kind of a separate culture that's not really Korean, that's not really American, but it's kind of a interesting hybrid of the two that we kind of live in, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's, I think, going to be interesting to see what our kids develop because of the way that we selectively choose from that culture what to pass down.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Hopefully, we'll pass on only good ones.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, hopefully. But that's what happens. All right, sorry, we kind of got sidetracked, but yeah, let's get into kind of like your schooling life, where
Sure.
you went to university and like what you ended up studying.
Yeah, so I went to University of Georgia. Go Dogs. I know you went to tech.
Tech.
Boo. Yeah, so I went to University of Georgia for my undergrad and also for my graduate school. Um, for my undergrad, I studied nutrition science, and for my grad school, I studied pharmaceutical sciences.
Hmm.
So yeah, but when I was in undergrad, I wanted to go to pharmacy school, like PharmD, become a pharmacist. But then during that transition into grad school, kind of switched and just studied pharmaceutical science in more research.
Hmm. So, I mean, why'd you want to do that? What was your motivating factor?
Well, to be honest, I went to UGA and decided to pursue pharmacy because my mom told me to.
Mm,
Yeah, so, I was kind of like, that daughter, wanted to be the perfect daughter where I wanted to obey my parents' wishes and become a great pharmacist
mm,
and all that. But then as I shadowed a couple pharmacists and really got to see what day-to-day life would be like as a pharmacist. I mean, granted, like there are a lot of people that do great, you know, they're great pharmacists. They still work, but personally for me, I just felt like it wasn't for me. I
mm,
didn't really want to work at one place where I have to really face patient or like customers and like I'm really not. I can be social if I need to be, but I rather stay in one place just by myself, do my own work kind of thing. So yeah, that led me to research. Yeah, the beauty of research is that you just do your own thing and no one really bothers you. So yeah, and then that led me to pharmaceutical sciences.
mm. So, I want to ask you about what exactly are you researching? Like, so you are working right now as what's your title? Like,
Scientist?
yeah. So you're actually doing what you studied, right?
Yes.
So
Yep.
what does that entail?
Uh, okay. So if you look at it, I'm gonna try to see if I can explain this. I'm not good at talking, but so there's when you go to pharmacy school, there's a route where you become pharmacist, right?
Mm,
And then there's also a research area where you will study how drugs are made.
mm,
What are the active ingredients that will be therapeutic to patients, right?
mm,
And then also there's aspect of testing those drugs um, at a scientific level to make sure that they are safe and qualify them to be like sold in the market for patients. So within that realm of research, that's what mainly I do at work and also what I studied. So
mm,
when I was in grad school, I studied mainly on over-the-counter drugs and um, how over-the-counter drugs are developed because they go through different route of prescription drugs,
mm,
and then also um, kind of learning the regulatory sciences aspect of what is needed for any type of drugs to be marketed and provided to the patients,
mm.
right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, and then that led me to this job where um, I will support a lot of other products. I think I can say this. I don't think this is confidential stuff. But yeah, I support a lot of vaccines and inhalers at my
Mm.
current company.
Hmm.
And then so we study and I support like how those products can be marketed um, through analytical testings, like the chemistry aspect, the manufacturing aspect, and then what controls are needed for us to really ensure that the drugs that we are making are, therapeutic as well as safe for the patients and ensure their quality of
Does
the drug.
is your company dabbling in a COVID vaccine right now?
So we actually, our company bought different small companies
Hmm.
to work on vaccines for COVID drugs.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Right. So I think we were late in the game, honestly. I think there are a lot of other big companies that are more on the phase 3 trial and phase
Mm,
2 trials. But I think we're only at a beginning stages of, in the development of the COVID vaccines.
gotcha, gotcha. Hearing your description of what you do, it reminded me. If there's anyone out there who wants to learn more about that, the When I Grow Up podcast actually had a research pharmacist on.
Oh,
And
really?
she like dives really deep into like what she studied, how she got into what she does and stuff. So go check that out. A little plug for our friends over at the When I Grow Up podcast.
Yeah.
Um, One thing I realized I really wanted to talk to you about, Helen, and I
Yeah.
just thought of this is your love story with Justin. I think the beginning was kind of crazy how like it started, right?
Yes.
Kind of the obstacles that you guys faced, but we all know it's a happy ending because you guys are about to be married.
Hmm.
But can we start talking about that a little bit?
Oh, yes. I could write a books, not just one book, books. Where do I begin? I mean,
So
how did we start dating? I don't know.
when did you guys meet? Like how were you in college at the time?
Yeah, so we actually met at the right after or towards the end of senior year of college, undergrad. So I was about to graduate
Mm-hmm.
with my undergraduate degree, and um, we had mutual friends. I guess mutual coworker for him, and then mutual friends for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, his name is also Justin, and then, so Justin was like, "Do you want to go on, a little blind date?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I was like, "Okay, sure, why not?" Because I was single at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and then we kind of hit it off from then.
Mm-hmm.
But but Justin, my fiance, we knew each other since high school because we went to same high school as well. Yeah,
Oh.
but we didn't really um yeah, like we didn't really know each other. We
Oh, yeah,
just
that's right. Didn't you say you didn't really like him in high school? Like you thought he wasn't.
No, I actually had a so okay, a little back. Let's backtrack a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So Justin, my fiance, he was kind of like the all uh, this Asian guy who's really good at sports, played like football and was in a swim team. So like a lot of girls liked him. So all Asian girls at our school had a crush on him at least some
Mm-hmm.
point in their lives, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then I was one of them. But Justin didn't know me. He will claim that he knew me, and that's like when he fell in love with me, but that's total lie.
Mm. Okay. So then, that's when you guys met as you were about to graduate college,
Yep,
and you hadn't told your parents about the fact that you were dating him yet, right?
correct.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I grew up in a family where my parents are very strict. So I wasn't allowed to have boyfriends. I wasn't allowed to sleep over at friends' house. Yeah, and I had a curfew of like, I don't know, maybe like 8. Like my mom will start calling me if I'm not home by 8 o'clock
Mm-hmm.
or something. 8 or 9. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, not just Justin, but all my boyfriends. Like, I never told my parents.
Uh,
Yeah. So yeah, my parents didn't know about Justin until something happened.
that's so. Tell us about what happened.
Yeah, so crazy story. Justin and I we were in an accident actually. I think it was all of us actually, you,
Yeah.
David, and Shirley, with like a lot of our church friends. We were going on this bike riding event at
Yeah.
night.
Hmm.
Yeah, so Justin and I were walking to get to the place. We parked somewhere and then we were walking towards that place. And this drunk driver came out of nowhere and hit us both. So yeah, it was a pretty bad accident. Yeah, I almost died, I would say. Um, I mean, it's been a while now that so I can't really say it without any kind of, you know, that kind of feel like
Yeah.
traumatic kind of feeling. But back in the day, yeah, it was really bad. Yeah, so we were both. I was under the car. Is this too graphic, by the way?
No, not at all.
Yeah, and Justin really actually really saved my life because he pulled me and then for a little bit. That's why yeah, I was under the car, and only my knee was pretty messed up
Mm,
because Justin was there to like pull me out. So yeah, that happened, and that was only like maybe like first month or second month of us started dating.
mm,
So,
yeah.
and because I was in the hospital and in the ER, like you guys had to call my mom, and then that's how that's when she found out about me and Justin. Yeah, so we really started from negative, I would say.
Right.
Like, yeah, my mom was not happy at the fact that I was dating this guy who, and then we were in an accident together. So
And
yeah,
she actually didn't know you were at this event, right? She thought you were somewhere else, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I used to lie a lot to my parents or my mom because she was just so strict.
Mm,
And when you're in college, like you wanna have that kind of freedom. So
yeah.
yeah, so I didn't even tell my mom that I was going to this like bike riding event because I knew she was gonna be like, "Why are you going there? It's dangerous." Blah blah blah.
Mm. Yeah, it was. I remember that night vividly because, so yeah, like you were saying, me and Shirley were there. It was kind of like a quadruple date, right? There were several couples, like we were all there hanging out together.
Yeah.
And even before the event started, like right before it started, um, I think Justin called Lois,
Mhm.
and Lois found out that you got hit and you were taken to the hospital. So we all like immediately just packed up our bikes and then we like rushed to the hospital. And I remember seeing you like you were in one of those like your like head was like restrained and like there was actually I don't know if I imagined this, but I like there was like blood everywhere, right? Was that did I imagine that or was that real?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my knee was like kind of like my legs were covered in blood, and then I think I had my like yeah, I think my there was something on my head as well.
Yeah.
So it's like
So we were like freaking out at first because we thought, well, first of all, Lois's reaction was like
I
super
died.
dramatic. Yeah, like she like fell to the floor crying. So we thought like you were like literally like dead. So
Yeah.
we rushed to the hospital and like while we were there, like we noted we realized that at the hospital it wasn't really life threatening anymore.
Mhm.
So we relaxed a little bit. But yeah, I remember your mom coming and Justin kind of having to explain what had
What
happened.
happened? Yeah.
But for her, for your mom, it's like, first of all, Helen wasn't supposed to be here. I don't even know who you are. You're not supposed to be dating my daughter. So I know I remember for the longest time, you guys, even when like the relationship started getting really serious, you guys weren't really comfortable like displaying that to your mom, right?
Yeah. I mean, my mom was like, I think during that time, like when I was at the hospital, she straight up told me break up with him. Like you can't date this guy.
Mm,
And then so I actually did like kind of try to break up with Justin. Cause like I felt like um I was doing something really, 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 really bad to my mom.
mm,
First I lied to her and then I got into this accident, right? Even though it's not my fault or it's not Justin's fault at all that
mm,
this happened. Just the fact that it happened behind my mom's back, I felt really guilty.
mm,
So when and then so I didn't want to break her heart again by trying to push to date this guy,
mm,
right? And but um but then like we just couldn't, honestly.
mm.
Like I tried and then we at that point, even though it was only a couple months in of our dating relationship, like we were already so in love, and I just needed him to be with me. Yeah.
So like when you tried to break up with him, was it like Justin saying no, I don't want to break up with you, or like would you guys break up and then talk again and then get back together, like on and off like that?
Well, it wasn't. So I think we had that conversation. It's like when I was on the hospital bed. I know.
Uh,
Like, and then I, I don't really recall if he said okay or not, but then he left. But then I still kept in contact with him, right?
mm,
Um, so even though I said those things, my actions weren't really
right.
following that, following what I proposed. So yeah. So we kept talking. And then he kept visiting me as well because I was really not in a good shape physically. Um, and my mom working all the time. She had her own store to take care of. My brother was living in different state,
Mm,
so he came often, like every day, literally, to take care of me.
mm.
So
So
yeah, so like I needed him as well. Like I just couldn't break up with him, even though I said that.
can we talk a little bit about your kind of recovery? Like what? So
Yeah.
your knee was very, it was like severely injured, right? And you had to go through like
Yes.
therapy, and it was like it took like years to really recover from, right?
Yeah. So from what I recall, my left knee, um, so surprisingly, I didn't break any bones except that I fractured my hip. But my knee, when it came to ligaments and my ACL and PCL and all the ligaments, like I think there's like four ligaments in the front or something. I don't know. Into. I'm not really. I'm not an expert on that, but a lot of ligaments were torn, and then I also had to get donor's meniscus.
Interesting.
So I think it's like a little piece that connects your bones, and then you like need it. But
Oh,
then it's something, if it's torn or messed up, then mine was to the point where I had to get donor's one um,
interesting.
to use my knee. So yeah, so I went through a big surgery on that, and then it took me exactly a year for me to recover physically, be able to run, like walk, run, and do some, like heavy, like squatting and things like that.
Mm,
But I still do have permanent damage where I can bend my knee all the way.
mm,
So, like Korean style when you like potty squat,
yeah.
like I can't do that because I have a permanent injury on my
Oh
knee.
wow. And I remember you had like huge scar at one point, like on
Oh yeah,
yeah. So like that was like another thing that you had to like take care of, right?
right. So my other leg, so my left knee is where I did my surgery on, and then my right leg, I think like pretty much all throughout my thigh area. I had the tire burn.
Mm,
So I had to recover from. Thankfully, I didn't really need to get any type of skin graft. So that was good.
mm.
But it left me like a permanent damage where I still have a huge scar on my knee. I mean, on my thigh, on my right side. So,
Oh wow. So what happened to the guy who hit you guys, by the way?
well, well, um, so actually, it's surprising. Or I think I heard this from my lawyer or something, but his wife is actually a lawyer. So I think we kind of settled on like he had, definitely he got DUI,
Mm,
and then he had to go through his own like stuff personally on his end because of the DUI, as well as you know compensating for like what I my physical well-being.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's not that he like got arrested or like put in jail. I don't think that happened. But I knew he had to go through some type of trials for his DUI and things like that.
Mm,
But honestly, during that time, I my priority was just getting healthy.
yeah.
So, all of that stuff, like I really didn't care. Well, I think it also is part of kind of like a trauma where I didn't really want to see his face. I didn't want to know his information. I just didn't want anything to do with him personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really don't know, honestly, what
Gotcha.
really happened at the end.
Gotcha. Wow. Yeah. So your relationship started off with the bang like this. Uh, so how long did you guys date before you realized, or before you realized, oh, I want to marry this guy?
So we dated 6 years now, if you include that we're not really married like legally. So
Mm-hmm,
yeah, we dated 6 years, but I think by like year 4, I was like, I am going to marry this guy.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I know Justin, like from his perspective, he was already sure as soon as we started dating. But for me, like Justin was really good. Like I really want to. I was so in love with him, and then wanted to pursue this. But then I had to think about a lot of things. One being my mom.
Mm,
So I think that it really Justin really pushed me to think a lot when it comes to like with like my own relationship with my mom. And then that's when I really realized, okay, it's not about just marrying Justin, but also mending my relationship with my mom. And then he kind of taught me how to do that. So that's yeah. So I think that was around year 4 when I felt like, oh, I'm going to marry this guy.
wow. Because, yeah, like Shirley and I, we got married like 3 years ago. And I remember talking to Justin around that time. I think even then he was pretty sure that he was, or he wanted to marry you.
Oh yeah,
But again, I remember the big obstacle being kind of not even just your mom as a person, but even like revealing the relationship to her, right?
yeah,
Because like you were saying, you didn't want to. Because like it's interesting if we look at your life, even the fact that you went to UGA to study this specific field, it was hugely influenced by your mom, right? And
hmm,
you just grew up not really wanting to disappoint her and kind of doing like the things that she asked you to do. So it must have been a huge dilemma for you, right? Like
yeah,
you met this guy, you guys went through all this ordeal, and you are now sure that you want to marry him. But then the other part of you is saying, well, then that goes directly against what my mom told me, and like if you're having to battle, am I gonna marry this guy or disappoint my mother,
yeah,
right? So
exactly.
so how did the mending of that relationship like happen? Like how did that take place?
Um, well, I think it really had to do with um their prayer as well. Um, honestly, like if I didn't really um so one day I was just sitting and with my mom, like I was helping her at work. Well, actually in the beginning, so you know, it, I made all these decisions in my life not because my mom was like really scary and like strict on me where I felt I was scared of her, but because I've seen so many sacrifices that she did for me and my brother, right?
Mm,
And then when you grow up in that kind of household where you see your parents like constantly working, breaking their back to support your family, like I felt like I had to be a daughter where I had to like be the perfect one and not to disappoint her, right?
mm,
So it came out of that kind of guilt and not because like I was scared of her. But but yeah, like so one day I was like with my mom and then all of a sudden like I had this courage, that or like it was just like at that moment something kind of like hit me saying that I need to tell her today or it's never going to happen. Like if I lose this time, if I lose this moment of not, and just pass this kind of gut feeling and, shut my mouth and don't tell her, then I'm not going to be able to marry this guy.
mm,
Like one day it just happened out of nowhere. Like, and I told her, and then she flipped out. Like it was so bad. Like I've never seen my mom so angry, so heartbroken, so like devastated.
mm,
And so like our conversation was going nowhere. It wasn't even conversation, it was just like she yelling at me most of the time. But it was just going nowhere. So my brother actually like had to come. I don't know where he was, but he came and then he was like he had to kind of be the middle person to stop our conversations and you know be on my side as well as my mom's side.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And for yeah, a little bit of background. My brother always knew that I was dating Justin. Like I always told my brother everything.
Mm,
So he was aware at the fact that like I was dating Justin from the beginning.
yeah. I remember when you told us that you were like thinking about telling your mom. Like I
Yeah.
remember that era, and I remember some of us actually thought that she might already know, because there were certain things that happened. Like for example, when you were out on a date with Justin, you actually ran into my mom, right?
Yeah.
And my mom, and your mom, they're close
Super
friends,
close.
so
Yeah.
we assumed that like my mom would tell, like or like just like casually mention it, not knowing that it's a secret. So there were like at me personally, I thought that your mom kind of knew, and that
Mhm.
you telling her wouldn't be as a big a deal as you thought it would be.
Yeah.
But like when I heard that she like flipped out, I was like, oh, she really didn't know.
Yeah, she had no idea.
Yeah. So
I guess I was a good
mom,
liar.
if you're listening, thank you for not being a snitch. Wow. So like once that fight happened, how
Yeah.
did you? I mean, it's sounding maybe you're gonna get into it, but it's sounding like your brother was a lot of help. But how did that turn into the relationship that it is now, where your mom very much loves Justin, right? Like,
Mhm.
how did that transformation take place?
So I think definitely um she realized a lot of things because I was always that daughter, never really disappointed my mom. But for me to actually bring this up and really pursuing like this is what I want in my life, this is the guy that I want to marry. Um, I think it kind of she kind of realized how important this is. But that didn't really come from the beginning. Definitely, it took I would say yeah for a long time that she was always in in rejection mode. Like whenever like I started like talking about like Justin or like our relationship, then she didn't really want to hear it in the beginning.
Mm,
But I still tried to have that conversation, whether she liked it or not. Because if we don't talk about it, then it's never gonna go anywhere. You know, it's not gonna go anywhere. So and then um and then big part of it also, as I mentioned, was their prayer. Um, I remember vividly because I was living in Athens, you know, even during that time. After I graduated, I still had lease left, and then I was doing internships and things like that. So I lived in Athens, and every day when I was going on campus for my research and things like that, I would pray to God. But not to, and then my prayers were not to change my mom's heart, but God, let your will be done, right? If this person um is meant to, like, you know, if this person you gave me is for us to really continue our lives together as a married couple, then let your will be done. And if it's not, then I'm okay with that too, because that's part of your will, right? So my prayer in that, I think God really answered my prayer in a sense, and it was another confirmation that, you know, we are really meant to be married. So yeah, I think as I prayed those prayers, my mom's heart started to change. And also, she's a really hard believer as well. She's a Christian, and then she went through a lot of stuff in her life as well. So she always had God as her guidance, and as she also prayed for me and Justin, like, you know, this whole situation, I think God really opened her hearts to be open towards us. So I can't really pinpoint what really happened, but I think it's just really by grace of God that this fell into places. Like it was just, yeah, it felt like a big puzzle that kind of came together, I would say.
yeah, it sounds like the way that you kind of got through to her was through a lot of prayer, first of all, and also through a lot of, I guess, uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah,
You making sure that even though you weren't super comfortable, like you didn't want to have those conversations, but you made sure that you had them to make progress, right?
yeah,
Wow.
definitely. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was difficult, but as I tried to do that though, all the things that I was holding against her, like not being able to have that kind of freedom where like when my friends have, like what my friends have, like just, you know, everyday life, what a normal college kids would have, or um, always, you know, going to our store to help mom with work during weekends, you know, and all the things. I felt like my part of my life was kind of robbed because of this
Mm,
whole our family situation.
mm,
But then that part, like all the grudges that I held against my mom, like through these uncomfortable conversations, I was able to see her perspective and really learn what kind of person she is. Not just my mom, but then what kind of woman she is, what kind of woman of God she is. And yeah, so a lot of things came out of that, I would say.
wow. I remember, I think Shirley told me that when you guys hung out in high school, sometimes like your mom would call you and then you'll say, I'm hanging out with Shirley. And then your mom would make you give the phone to Shirley so that Shirley
Yeah.
can say, it's actually me. Yeah.
Yes, those days.
Yeah. Yeah. But I can relate with, when you were saying that it wasn't really fear, it was more of recognizing all the sacrifices that she made for you, like your parents made for you, and wanting to not disappoint them. I think that's something that a lot of Asian American kids, like second generation kids, can relate with, because
Yeah.
we've all kind of seen, witnessed sacrifices that our parents have made and definitely, yeah, did all that we can not to disappoint them.
Mm-hmm.
So, so all of that happened. I remember that there was one Sunday we were all in small group together, and you guys said that you were gonna go eat lunch with your mom, like you, Justin, and your mom. And that first time, like that went well, right? But going into that kind of first like officially introducing your boyfriend to your mom, how was that?
It was so nerve-wracking, honestly, because like we said, like we started from like negative, right?
Yeah.
And then like after I told my mom that she was kind of so there was a period where she was like, okay, like I'll try to get to know him, right? Um, I understand where you're coming from, and then I think like she was like, it's fair for me to like take some time to get to know him and really really get to know him as a person as well. So that's when like that whole meeting with like my mom and also my dad was in he so my dad is in Korea and he came to US because my brother was getting married.
Mm,
So this was kind of like a one time where like our family was really in one place.
mhm.
So like so yeah, but that was really like I was super nervous. I think Justin was nervous too.
Sure.
But at the fact that she said okay to meeting him and eating lunch with him, she already like opened up.
Mm,
If she didn't, if she had a little bit of like, oh, like I still want to reject this,
yeah.
she wouldn't have said yes. But because she said yes, we already kind of knew that she's already opened up.
Mm,
Um, yeah, but then the conversations, well, went really well. Um, I don't really remember what we talked about though. It was just mainly like about like his work, like what does he do, like and like just like getting kind of like like what's your parents do and like
yeah.
the whole general questions on that line. So
So did your mom start liking him immediately after that, or what did it take some time before she actually started liking him?
like like immediately after that, it was so funny because so that day like Justin came to our church, right?
Mhm.
um and then we had lunch or whatever, I think. And then we went home. And then, like, I think on the way to home, like, they're in the car, right? She was like, this isn't the Justin that I remember from like 5 years ago, like from our accident. And I
Mm,
was like, she was like, she thought like I was looking at total like a different person.
mm,
So, and then she was telling me that like because she was so blinded at 5 years ago when accident happened, she was saying that she was so blinded of like all the negative things and all the evil things. She was really being honest with me, saying like she was so blinded by like the world's expectation of what a great guy is. Like you have to be successful and like make a lot of money to support my daughter and all the things like that, right? Yeah, so she said she was so blinded by that and also like a lot of things like her own worldly expectations that when she saw Justin back then, like she saw a completely different person. But then because she let go of a lot of things, really like, as a woman of God, and I think she grew a lot, especially through the whole season of us trying to mend our relationship as well as like getting to know Justin. I think she saw that true side of who Justin is at that moment when we had lunch. So she was already like in love with him, honestly. Right after that.
do you think she initially kind of blamed Justin for the accident that happened to you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mm. So there's
Yeah.
all these already, like, even before meeting the guy, she has this terrible view of him. So I'm sure that's what kind of contributed to just, yeah, all of that. And then when she finally met him, getting to know his personality, she that blindedness
Yeah.
went away, I guess. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
What a great story.
So honestly though, like I think when it comes to me and my mom and our life and our walk, um, we really I know for sure that Justin was placed in our lives, not just my life, but in just in my mom's life and our life to really fall in love with to fall in love with them more and also to grow our faith
Wow.
through all these trials and sufferings that we went through. um, God really placed Justin in our lives so that we could mend our relationships as well as grow more in Him.
Wow.
So like
That's great.
yeah, so like I can't imagine what kind of life I'll be living if Justin wasn't in my life,
Mm,
and also in my mom's life.
mm,
Yeah,
wow. Thanks. So, last question I want to ask is,
sure.
you like you alluded to, you and Justin, you guys moved to New Jersey late March because of your job.
Hmm.
But how has like the move been and the process of like getting married or about to be getting married and all that? How has that changed because of the pandemic?
When is COVID gonna be over?
Mm,
But yeah, so as soon as we moved up to New Jersey, that's when everything went um, like the state closed, right?
yeah.
Everywhere. And we had to quarantine ourselves. So like I had the privilege to onboard to my work remotely and transition into our apartment, even just, getting our apartment, buying furnitures for our house. It was yeah, we had to like, find our ways to do that because
Mm,
IKEA was closed. We were staying at a hotel for like 2 weeks to find a place.
mm,
Um, and once we moved in, we had to buy furnitures, but nothing was open.
mm,
So it took a while for us to get settled in to New Jersey. Um, and then I had to catch up on like my work stuff because I had, transitioning to new workplace remotely is pretty difficult as well because you can't really meet everyone. So yeah, so it's been it's been really fun ride, I would say, fun experience. But all in all, everything went well because it was kind of like our time for us to start our honeymoon phase early,
mm,
and this COVID really gave us time for us to be together 24/7,
yeah.
and not a lot of couples go through that, right?
Yeah.
Or even have a chance to spend literally 24 hours at the same time, same place for months, like this. So, um, so yeah, that was good. I would say. I mean, there were good and bads, but yeah. But when it came to our wedding ceremony, we definitely had to cancel because COVID rates are going up,
Mm,
and we didn't want to risk anybody's life. Like our wedding isn't worth risking people's lives. So
yeah.
yeah. But and then also figuring out all the stuff with our vendors, where it was a big headache for us, but we were able to cancel everything well, and then hopefully have our wedding ceremony next year.
So have you guys, so when you can't, like, so for people who don't know what the whole wedding planning process is, you have to reach out to all of these vendors separately. There's separate security deposits that you have to put down for the photographer, for the venue, for the flowers, all these sort of different things. So
Right.
you had to individually go cancel all those things. Were you able to like get money back for a lot of these people or?
Not all of it. And I actually struggle with that a lot because like it's not our I mean it wasn't yeah, so all the deposits that we pretty much made for with our vendors,
Mm-hmm.
um, it was non-refundable. So we couldn't really get our money back on that. And especially with our venue, we put down a lot of money, like half of our wedding
Mm-hmm.
already. And then because that was a big sum of money that they were actually generous and gave money back, like portions of it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, um, so that was good. But generally, like everything per contract, like once you make the deposit, then you can't get it back. It's like non-refundable. So
Mm-hmm.
we had to really struggle through that. Like, should we still have our wedding? Because there's it's money that we're just kind of throwing out the window,
Yeah.
or should we just cancel it and then plan something later? And we kind of decided on that. Money is money. I mean, and then what matters is like us getting married, like, or like starting the marriage life, and it's not the ceremony that matters much.
Yeah.
So we kind of let go of that, and and then yeah. So yeah, we did get some money back. Not all of it, I would say, but what can you do?
Yeah. Well, hopefully COVID goes away by next year so that you guys can have, the ceremony that you were planning on having this year. Um,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but I mean, I have, yeah, a lot of couples are going pretty much going through the same thing, I bet.
yeah,
It's, yeah,
it's tough. Well,
yeah.
but thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Helen. It's
Yeah, no problem.
very,
Always.
very inspiring, especially the whole like struggle and transformation of you and your mom's relationship. Like both God working in both of your hearts to like, yeah, just really bring you guys together. It's very it's very inspiring, and I think it kind of gives other people who might be going through the same thing an idea of how to approach that, through a
Hmm.
lot of prayer and through, you know, getting through uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I think that's awesome. So, anything that I didn't mention that you wanted to touch on today?
No, I think that was good.
Hmm?
Thanks for having me. Hopefully, mine wasn't too boring, or I felt like I was like, babbling on
No, it was great.
things, but
No, it was
yeah.
super interesting and really great. So yeah, guys, thank you for listening. If you have any questions or if you have any feedback, please feel free to reach out at IHTHTpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, any feedback for Helen, I will relay onto her as well. You can reach out on Instagram at I hope they hear this or on Twitter at IHTHT podcast. So yeah, again, thank you guys for tuning in. Helen, thank you so much for your time. Yeah, we're way over an hour. So yeah, thank you for your time this evening, and
Okay.
yeah, I hope the listeners will, really get value out of your story.
Yes, I hope so.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.